Hi, I'm John Pope. Today I'll be doing an instructional video on how to change a timing belt on a 1.6 liter 16 valve Suzuki Sidekick engine. This engine is took out of the vehicle due to a crankshaft failure, and I thought it'd be a whole lot easier to show you how to change a timing belt with the engine sitting on the stand. But it can be done inside the engine compartment. Let's get to it. First of all, you remove the tension from the alternator and the power steering pump to loosen these belts. This will give you enough slack to slide the belts off. You'd take the nuts off. If the engine was in the engine compartment, you would take the nuts off and remove the fan and slide this pulley off. This is the crankshaft pulley. This is what gets you to the timing belt. You remove, there's 5 bolts in here, and you remove them. Do not remove the center bolt. I'll explain why in just a minute. This is what caused the failure of this engine. Now proceed to remove the crankshaft pulley. Next thing for removal is the timing belt cover. This is secured on by 10mm bolts. And don't forget the one in the center. That's the one that goes to the timing tensioner. This is the one in the center that's held on by the timing tensioner. Here's the bolt we are going after. Here's the timing belt. This is the crankshaft pulley I told you not to remove. This is what caused the engine failure from the previous owner. They failed to get this bolt completely torqued down to 95 foot-pounds, and it caused this sprocket to wobble onto the crankshaft journal. It caused the failure of the keyway. Next thing you do, this motor's already rotated. You rotate the engine until you line up the time mark here and the time marks here. Then you can remove the tension off the tensioner, and then you remove this spring. And this relieves the tension on the belt. Then you go out and try to walk the belt off the tensioner and off the sprockets. Then you go get you the new belt and you compare them. We're just reinstalling this belt since it doesn't have that many miles on it. But you compare the belts to make sure the teeth are the same and the overall length is close to being the same. Since this is a used belt, it will be a little bit longer since it's being stretched than compared to a brand new belt. Then you go back shore. Make sure all your time marks are lined up. These are lined up and these are lined up. Then you go back on and you make sure all your tension is on the alternator side. That's where the tensioner is at. Make sure you keep this as straight as possible. That keeps all the tension to one side. And slide this belt on and work it on there, so like that. Then you take and reinstall your spring. This will give you like a preliminary amount of tension. Just enough to get it started to make sure you're in time. And proceed to turn this crankshaft 2 revolutions. You have to turn it 2 revolutions because this is a 4-stroke engine. Make sure that you keep everything in time. And also this removes all the tension from this side if there was any. Just keep rotating it. And the best way to do it, you see the time mark coming up right there, is to turn it so that matches up. Since the crankshaft has to turn 2 revolutions for the camshaft to turn 1. This time mark is lined up with the V at the top of the valve cover, and this time mark is lined up with the oil pump. Okay? Make sure your belt's all good and on. Tighten up this. Take a 12mm ratchet, tighten up your timing tensioner. Just snug. Then take your wrench and tighten up this. This is what secures your timing belt tension. Then you can proceed. Everything's in time. Let's go back and put the cover on. Best way I found to start this is to start with the center nut. After that, everything else, just leave it just hand tight. Then go back, start at the bottom. And put all your timing cover bolts back in. Best off to put them in just hand tight to make sure you get all of them started. Okay. The next thing up is to put your crankshaft pulley back on. This is held on by 5 bolts, 8mm in size. Right here's a dowel that the crankshaft rides on. So you want to line it up. Like so. It's being a little difficult today for some reason. This is like not a real press fit, but it fits really snug, so you just start all the bolts before you torque them down. Stubborn socket wants to stay with it also. Next thing that's up to do is to put your pulleys back on. If this engine was inside the engine bay, you'd slide this on. Then you put a fan on it. Then you would put your belt on. Then you put your power steering pump belt on. You would torque these all down to factory specs. You would get in, you would crank the engine. Then you would enjoy your work. I'm John Pope. Thank you very much.